Like the pine trees lining the winding road, I've got a name, I've got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I've got a name, I've got a name. And I carry it with me like my daddy did, but I'm living the dream that he kept here. Rolling me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Like a north wind whistling down the sky, I've got a song, I've got a song. Like the river will and the beavers cry, I've got a song, I've got a song. And I carry it with me and I sing it loud. It gets me nowhere, I go there proud. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. And I'm gonna go there free. Like the fool I am and I'll always be. I've got a dream, I've got a dream. They can change their mind, but they can't change me. I've got a dream, I've got a dream. Oh, I know I could share it if you want me to. If you're going my way, I'll go with you. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by. Moving me down the highway, rolling me down the highway, moving ahead so life won't pass me by.
So that particular song is called I've Got a Name, and it was by a singer, Jim Croce, and it was a hit in about 1972. Not a big hit, but a moderate hit. Where its impact on my life began was that it happened for me to become a song that I have actually identified that as my personal theme song for most of my life. I was a young theological student at Queen's University when that song first impacted into my hearing. And I was heading down the highway in a Volkswagen Beetle, going up through northern Ontario and heading across the prairies to a student mission field in southern Saskatchewan. And that song was my constant companion on the road. I was entering into a position and a career that I had grown up with. I am the son of a minister. I am the nephew of ministers. I am the great-nephew of ministers. For 3 generations I've been told how to do it, and what it meant to be good at it, and what it meant to be great at it. And I had a different opinion. And I was heading out into the no man's land to find my ministry. And I arrived in a little community that was founded in 1950. And in the 1960s had 500 people living in it. And when I arrived in the early 70s, there was 15 people left in the village. And I served a really great big area of 25,000 square miles with a small little country church. And the very first church council meeting, the chair of the board sat me down, this young university student minister, and said, "There's nothing you can do with us. You're here to look after the kids." And he was right. He was right. They didn't want to change. They were busy hanging on to the past. They were busy hanging on to what was. They were busy hanging on to who they thought they were. But their kids, yeah, we had a ministry together. And we had kids programs, and we had picnic outings, and we had all those things you expect student ministers to do. And they were right. I changed my tune, my vision. And I was right. My father, he didn't see it the same way as me. He felt I should have reprimanded them, stood up to them, done all these things that ministers do because we're important. And when I hear those scriptures of the disciples bickering amongst themselves about who's the greatest, that is so societal. We all do that. Everybody wants to be the biggest fish in the littlest pond. We all argue about who's great, who's more important. Who's more important to the organization? Whose job is more important? You know, you pick the organization, whether it's a church, a school, a business, a community. Who's more important? And we argue and we argue and we argue and we argue. And we're all looking for that measure of success that means numbers and power and a big name. It's not okay to open a small restaurant. You've got to have golden arches and billions served. Even amongst clergy, how big is your church? How big does it need to be? You know, it's like, how many people do you get? How many programs do you have? How many kids do your Sunday school? I'd love to say we don't really know. We sometimes have one, sometimes we have none, sometimes we have 4 or 5. Is there a problem? Is it about the numbers or is it about the gospel? Is it about something else? Jesus turns that argument on its head when his disciples are arguing about who's more important, who brought more to the discipleship, whose skill sets were better to be used, who has more qualifications to be a disciple, who is the greatest. And he picks up a child and goes, this. And if I had an L for everybody who said, yeah, but children are so childish. Do we want our adults to act like childish children? And I went, no. We're not talking about the children who've already learned adult behavior. Jesus is picking up, it says, basically the age group. He's toddler and under. So go to a play school and watch the littlest children play. Before they've learned to grab, before they've learned to be jealous of one another, and look at them. They don't ask what color your friend's skin is. They don't even ask their names. They don't say, who do you belong to? Whose are you? Where are you from? What's your demographic? What's your family income? They don't ask those things. They just say, hey, you want to play with me? Do you want to connect? Do you want to be together? This is what discipleship is supposed to be about. It's about knowing your identity. Knowing your identity, not as somebody important or by what you have or what you can acquire, but knowing your identity as one of God's. The song talks about having a name and sharing it, living it forward. You can assume that that's your family surname, you can assume that's your first name, or you can assume it's your God name. It's the name that you share with God as a child of God. The old thing from the Old Testament of Moses asking God, "Who are you?" and God saying, "I am who I am. Now be who you are." Know your own identity. It's not about what you have. It's not about how much you're going to lord it over somebody else. It's about knowing you're at peace with yourself and your relationship with God. What Jesus is doing is throwing everything up in the air and making people realize that it's not about power. It's not about acquired materials. It's not about how much you have, how much you own, how much you control, how much you lord it over other people. Those things are a sign of weakness, not greatness. They're a sign of people who have to accrue things because they don't feel so good about themselves. Now, I'm not saying everybody who has acquired things in life is weak. But sometimes the path that leads us down that road is, I have to prove I'm better than someone else. How many siblings end up comparing themselves to their brothers and sisters because how much did they do with life versus what I did with life? We do it. Why do you need to compare? If you acquired what you acquired for the sake of yourself? What was the need that drove him? Jesus is telling us that the true power in life, true greatness, is determined by weakness and vulnerability, being like a child. When he held up a child, you do understand what that meant in his day, right? They didn't name children until they lived for at least 2 to 3 years. They weren't people. They didn't have any rights. They didn't have any security. They were nothing. This is what he's telling his disciples to be like. To be that powerless. To become that vulnerable. And that determination of your greatness is by service and sacrifice, by humility and honor, by truthfulness and faithfulness. We are called to preach a kind of greatness in this world and to live a kind of greatness in this world that is not about getting more, getting bigger, getting greater in the sense of the world standards. It's about just being open. Open to one another. Open to seeing somebody as an equal. And we have a lot of conversations about that. Doris this morning spoke about the people who had a sense of racism and prejudice, but didn't think they were racist and prejudiced. Just didn't think they were. Why would they think they were? Until they were confronted with their attitudes about another group of people who reside in the same country. I woke up yesterday morning to have my daughter ask me if she could have her skin color changed. Because the kids in school were saying she was too dark. That's what happens to children when they learn our values. And we don't think we're prejudiced. But we have to always keep our eye on Christ. And ask ourselves that old saying, what would Jesus do? You have to take your name. You have to sing your song. It has to be your God name, your God song, your God vision, your God direction in life. And you have to live it forward, going down the highway, looking at the world through the eyes of God. And that means looking at the world through the eyes of the child that's within you. And we all have that child within us. That little thing that we have put the walls around all of our lives to protect ourselves from the world outside. And that's why the world needs protection from all of us.